In today's fast-paced real estate landscape, success demands more than surface-level expertise. It requires insight, adaptability, proven strategies, discipline, and the ability to take risk. The Agent Brew podcast blends candid conversations with wisdom from industry leaders who've walked the path before you. Think of us as your strategic pit stop to fuel your real estate journey. From the crossroads of the world, in the heart of Times Square, welcome to the Agent Brew, a podcast that percolates real estate insights. I'm your host, Eric Zollinger of Realty Co. Welcome, listeners and viewers. Thank you for tuning in for today's episode of the Agent Brew, where we explore and navigate the unique journey of our guests' time in real estate. Today, we welcome a very good friend of mine, Elena Sarkissian of Douglas Elliman here in Manhattan. So welcome, Elena.
Hi, Eric.
Thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule for both home and work. I always like to start by telling everyone how we know one another. And you are one of my proud moments of Douglas Elliman Development Marketing. I still remember the day that one of our favorite people, Mr. Stephen Larkin, who I've have a very long history with. So Stephen, if you're listening today, thank you, appreciate you. But I believe it was a December afternoon that we met in the atrium of 490 Madison for lunch.
Mm-hmm. That's
and
right.
And Stephen was introducing us because he said, you know, I have this great person that would be incredible in new development. And look at you now.
Well, fortunately, Stephen and I knew each other from the days of Core, where I had learned a lot of my skill set in new dev. And we had a great synergy then, and it all kind of came together when he introduced me to you, and then it just was off to the races, right?
We were able to get you on 108 Leonard, that historic project, that landmark of a project. So congratulations. I know you're still working on that now.
It's definitely been a labor of love. It's almost 7 years. I know every inch of that building. It's like my first child. I still love it. It's a gorgeous project. It's definitely a jewel in the Douglas Elliman portfolio and in my professional portfolio. So I'm grateful.
That's great. Well, you've done a great job. And, you know, why don't you share with the audience basically your overarching elevator pitch, who you are, what your markets, how long you've been in the business, and take it away.
Okay. Well, I've been a broker almost 21 years. I have serviced all over Manhattan and Brooklyn, buyers and sellers. With respect to the past, I would say almost 7 years, I've been very top heavy new development, but I still do service my client base. A lot of my client base left New York with the pandemic, but many of them have come back or have a pied-à-terre now. So I do still work on the buy side. The Douglas Elliman model presents a very unique perspective because we are all veteran brokers who work every day on the street. So we do know what's happening day to day. We're not just in a new development bubble like other models. And I think that brings a really unique perspective. I'm hyper analytical, as you may remember.
Yes, that's what I love about you.
From my academic backgrounds,
What did you do prior to real estate? And I guess, where were you born? Did you grow up in Manhattan?
No, I'm a Midwesterner like you. I was born and raised in suburban Michigan, Bloomfield Hills, West Bloomfield area. A graduate of University of Michigan. I actually have 4 degrees. My first career, I'm a cancer epidemiologist, so I ran hematology oncology clinical trials for Northwestern. I have a master's in public health, focusing in cancer epidemiology, and then had a brief year or so of medical school in Boston at Boston University. It's not easy attempting to go through medical school and then addressing my mother's breast cancer, which I tried to do. So I took a leave of absence. My mom, thankfully, was cured and has done well this many years. And so I moved to New York, trying to evaluate what my next life chapter would be, and if that was going to continue in medicine, if that was going to be in something else. One of my best friends who isn't attending at Sloan Kettering said to me, Elena, why don't you get your real estate license? And, we're all buying apartments in the next so many months. So, that would be a good way to earn some money while you figure out your next real life chapter. And as it turns out, my brother was buying an apartment from a very large broker at Douglas Elliman, Avi Voda. This was again 20 years ago. And so I pushed my way into Avi's team, and he liked the way I thought about things, and I was aggressive about wanting to work for him. And he said, but you're supposed to be a doctor, not a real estate broker. Why do you want to work for me? And, it was off to the races. I do like to say that the commonality is working with people, which is what I love. That's why I'm here, to service people. And, I'm working with people still in a very intimate capacity, listening, communicating, interpreting, analyzing, just in a much happier capacity. End of life is certainly very draining. But, investing in property in New York City is oftentimes the most scary thing, the largest investment that you might make in your life. So
to put this in context, when you came into real estate, it was approximately 2003 to 5, around there, approximately.
That's right.
And so if we look and peer into what life was like back then, we're looking at a very different landscape. I mean, you're early in the Bloomberg years, and it went from, people not necessarily liking him to most of the city being rezoned, and this flurry of new development just coming everywhere. And it's just like, for those of us that started right around that time, because that was 1999, it's interesting that, there was a whole generation or 20 years that it didn't matter what you did, clients were just there. And so I always love talking to people that entered right around that time, because we have a very different mindset of what you have to do. And if you're still in the industry, you've survived those lean years because you had to make it work. You started at Douglas Elliman, and then you ended up, from there you went to Core.
Yes. So I had done a few deals at 260 Park Avenue South in primary sales, and Sean Osher and Tom Postilio were the on-site team. And we had a great synergy. When Sean was deciding to start Core in 2005, he and Tom approached me and said, you're exactly who we want to bring on board this boutique firm rooted in new development. So is that of interest? And it certainly was. I like the creative aspect of it. I love architecture. I love design. And so that was really exciting to me. So I was one of the original 9 people. We started Core in 2005. I had a 4-year run there. And then, Lehman filed for bankruptcy. When the world was very difficult in 2008 into 2009. I was showing a shell of a building. I was a sales director of a building, 5 East 44th Street. And
okay, right. That was
Philip Johnson. It was
yes.
The last residential building that he had done. 23 units, most full floors, between 5th and Madison. And interestingly, today I am listing one of those apartments. So that's a nice full circle moment, right?
It comes full circle.
Yeah, I love it. I came back to Douglas Elliman because many of my clients in the resale arena said, could you please refer someone at Douglas Elliman or Corcoran? We'd love to work with you, but we need one of the big engines behind us in selling our property, because it's a very challenging time with the, post-Lehman era. So when that happened several times, I thought, I think it's time to go back to the mothership. And I did. And, I sold the remainder of that building at Douglas Elliman, about half of it. And then I spent the next so many years working on my resale business at Douglas Elliman. until the 108 Leonard opportunity came along. So that was a definite shift in my business.
Hmm. And so, when you started to focus on resales, I'm just curious, what were some of your tactics, or what were your ways of gaining clients? Was it just mailing all of your previous clients, or were you actively aggressively getting leads, or what did that look like for you?
It was a very different world then than it is now. I mean, we didn't have social media. We didn't have video. We didn't have, we had Blackberries. We didn't have, a full computer in our hands at all times. So, my business was really all referral. Because I'm not a native New Yorker, it's harder than for other people. I would say I did have many friends from the University of Michigan, also from grad school who were here. So that was helpful. But I did, I went out a lot. I just met a lot of people. I was organically, introducing myself to people, not at, networking events, but just socially. It came together. And oftentimes I work with a lot of finance people because, one person in the M&A group, let's say at Goldman or Morgan or whatever, they tend to work with their group's referrals, whether it's the CPA, the dentist, the broker, what have you. So I built a lot of my early business that way, with finance groups. And
And
that was
and so
fortunate.
did you leverage technology with that? Did you have a robust CRM system that you were using, or was it
No,
just basically, wow?
no, it was all very organic. A little these days, probably a little too unorganized for someone who's quite organized. But just really, if you think about it, I mean, when you were, broker then, we didn't have those tools as we do now. So it was just kind of, I had, a book of my clients that I would follow up with. I'd ask them for a drink, I'd go to lunch or whatever. It was sure to follow up with clients, after a closing and what have you, just in a very traditional way, building my reputation and notoriety, really.
I agree with you. It is a very different world back then, and you would think that, because I've done resale now 4 times that I've launched, and I'm just now realizing, wow, I was so lucky in just the way I was being not fed business, but the way I got leads, because I didn't have that massive CRM system or I wasn't utilizing it in the right way of each time collecting all the email addresses and constantly keeping that list up to date. I was just mailing to buildings because I had an active crowd when I had my own firm, right? Like I never had to worry about that because I had lines coming through for each time. Now, that wasn't the case, and I probably should have had a more robust CRM system when they were going to build on top of Chelsea Market, because at that point everything dried up. But I've since learned that technology is your friend, and AI, and just being able to harness that and leverage it to your advantage. It's a game changer. So I always like to inquire about the technology component, because how are you using it? Because some agents, it's like, no, 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 I'm afraid of it, and yet others really embrace it.
You do have to pivot with each change in our lives in the marketplace. I am still kind of amazed by the whole cohort of younger brokers than us who, gain clients from a social media, like whatever it is, 20-second clip, and someone contacts them and they end up curating, that clients. That's not something that's been super fruitful for me.
No, I mean, I think you said it earlier. The way that we did it, I mean, I'll get my walker out now. Back on the dirt, we just went out. We were always socializing with it.
Yeah,
There was no TikTok, there was no Facebook. I mean, or
that's
maybe there
right.
was Facebook, but we did it as we are social organisms. We went and met people. That's what we did. That's why we moved to the city. Now nobody necessarily, it's not like, oh, I'd rather sit on my phone and just watch people, and it's not the same interaction.
Yeah.
So,
Also, post-pandemic, I think the way people socialize has changed. So I think that, um, you know, again, we're older than the 20, 30-year-olds these days. But I mean, I went to a lot of events. I went to charity events. Even charity events are not what they used to be. I mean, people just engage differently. People date differently. Thank God I'm not single. That would be a whole other world. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I'm curious to know, over the years, we talked about how it's changed, but what were some of the wins over this time that you're most proud of, and why?
Well, I think you know that I am extremely tenacious. So,
No,
yeah,
really.
there are, certain large wins or big wins, I would say, that didn't come easily. I really had to hang on to them and, wear them down and make it work. As an example, as a reward for performance, if you will, I was offered by my developer at 108 Leonard, Elad, the remaining inventory at One West End. That had started at Corcoran Sunshine, then it came to Douglas Elliman, then it went briefly to Cantor Pecorella, and then they said to me, you've done so well for us. Would you like to close out the building? And that was a win because it's, acknowledgement for my performance, my sales. I had just delivered my daughter. I didn't take a whole lot of maternity leave. And so I said, yes, absolutely. Let's do it. And so I delivered at the end of August in 21. I started with that like 85 million that was left in October of 21. And I brought Jane Powers, my friend and colleague from 108 Leonard, to sell the remainder of the inventory with me. And we're off to the races. I mean, we were proud to bring it back to the company. They were all 4-bedroom homes. We sold them very well, very high price per square foot. And then the last one, the big one, the 29B, that had many twists and turns, but I did eventually get that done last March. And that deal was traded and retraded and took 2.5 months to get done. But I got to the sellout by hook or by crook and made sure that happened. So that was a big win. I felt good about that. And also good, for the company, right? That we brought it home, we sold it out. Other things have come from that as well. So maintaining that relationship, from the beginning and also from through the pandemic, that building could have easily left Douglas Elliman. I'm proud that I stayed. I worked hard. I did, I think, $58 million worth of deals during that year for that building, which was a lot in 2020.
Right. From that win, had you had any moments of like transformational losses, which then ultimately turn into wins? But were there just any difficult times during this career that you just really were going to give it all up, or you just found a way through?
I don't give up. So I've had some big ticket losses, like we all have. Not many board turndowns on the co-op arena, I'm proud to say. But a couple of clients who, you spend a lot of time with, you thoroughly, address all of their concerns. There was a $12 million deal at 56 Leonard that should have happened. It was just a matter of brokerage difficulties and, just painful. That was painful. I had another buyer who, was looking at townhomes. They were, $18, $19 million townhomes. And then they just decided they weren't finding what they loved. And then they were just going to rent something. So, things like that, I think veteran brokers who work at a certain price point, it's really painful when you invest a lot of time in that. And then it just doesn't end up being fruitful. I certainly didn't intend to give up my business as a result of that. It's just, you lick your wounds, you move on, you just keep on going harder for the next. I would say my most transformational time in my life was really the journey to having my daughter. And you were a part of you were in my sphere during the early days of that. I had a very aggressive IVF journey. I had double-digit losses. It was a very painful time. And I went through hell and back, but she's a lion. She's amazing, and she's healthy, thank God. And I'm healthy, thank God. So,
Well, for that, we're grateful for, but also, yes, I was there, front row seat, next to you, supporting you, and just really in awe of you never gave up, and you never let it affect your business. I mean, you were always there, present through each and every day. And I still remember we were at the corner of 56th and 5th, and I was learning about some of the difficulties. And I just, kudos to you. You're tenacious, but you're resilient. And it's just, when you have people like that in your life, and I'm just grateful for you. And you're part of the group of people that I just look at, and I'm in awe, and I'm grateful to have you as part of my journey too. So
thank you so much, Eric. That's so sweet of you. I always appreciate your support, and your friendship, of course. It's I credit my upbringing, my parents, very intelligent, very hardworking, European, but also Midwestern values, which I think is, there's something to be said for that. Hard work and determination. That's always been like my blueprint, I'm trying to instill that. My daughter at 3 and change is already extremely tenacious. So, I don't know that I have to do that much to curate that in her. But it's a roller coaster business, and I think it's become a lot more dramatic, and behavior perhaps has not been lately as professional among a lot of our colleagues, and also our clients. I mean, I think behavioral standards have changed a lot. And, I think you may remember this about me. I don't do a deep dive, Google-wise into a client I might be meeting, because I like to meet people and engage with them organically. I don't like to have a whole dossier on someone before I actually say hello. And, typically at least on the new dev front, I have, coordinators who will just do a little bit of recon just to make sure they're not like axe murderers or whatever. But on the resale ends, I'll do a little bit, and that's it, because I want to know people and understand them and pick up, what's important to them, their body language, how we exchange, their priorities and their interests, and, collaborating together to meet their goal. So, that's always been the root of my business and how I approach it, and how I keep, in speaking a certain language with people.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. So let's get on with the gratitude game. This is a point where we go into, and many times it's called the rose, thorn, bud. But I like to give a little pizzazz of coffee, since we are the agent brew, with a little twist. So we have the aroma, which is the aroma of fresh coffee brewing. Many times that's very invigorating for some, me. And so it's that, what gets you out of bed, or what is that first thing that energizes you in the morning?
My child. I mean, and for those of us who have toddlers, you understand it's like you pull yourself out of bed because there's a need, right? There's a little being that's like, Mama, so you've got to get rolling. But, I'm constantly organizing on my phone, the day ahead, and, moving things around to put a lot into the day and maximizing the time blocking, if you will. But, yeah, what gets me out of bed is all these new exciting things. I mean, really, it sounds maybe a little bit hokey, but I love what I do, and I like having a different day every day. I would go nuts if I sat in front of a computer and just like analyze data, which is, a lot of my education, or just sat there writing all day long. I like being on the move. So
Right.
that's, yeah.
And so that first cup, that the brew, that gives you a bit of a deeper joy or satisfaction. Some might say, what is your why?
I'm going to answer the same way for every
Yeah,
single thing
I
here.
think you could
Yeah,
do
my
the same.
family is definitely my why.
Yeah.
My daughter, my husband, she's at the root of everything I do. I want her, to have the benefit of our hard work and, but to, try to have her not be spoiled in New York City.
Yeah. So from there we go with the grinds or the grounds. Sometimes you spill it and so it's a little annoying or it's like that thorn in your side. And are there any frustrations or obstacles that you're currently involved with or recently that you would like to share?
I try to be very even, measured, with the teams that I lead on new developments. On my resale business, I'm alone. I'm a solo broker. I do have an assistant. Sometimes if it's just not working with a particular personality, you have to know when to just end the relationship, if you will. And that could be with someone who works on your team, or someone who works for you, a particular vendor, let's say a photographer, a videographer, could be, your assistant. It could be even a client. I mean, it's very rare for me to say to a client, I don't think that we can achieve our goals together. I
Mhm.
just will find a way to get it done, or I'll put someone else in, loop someone else into that relationship. But I think I'm trying at least now to focus my energy in the highest and best use and not just be a completionist, because that's kind of my wiring, to be a completionist. But sometimes you have to really accept that certain things are not going to be worth all of that energy and time and anguish, let's say.
Right. So to complete the gratitude game, it's the bud, it's the fresh beans. Um, what are you most looking forward to right now in your life?
I love the new challenges ahead. I have a lot of new buckets, if you will, of communities, let's say. And that kind of goes hand in hand with stage of life. And, my daughter's 3. We're in a school community, which we really like. She really likes. So we have a lot of new friends and hopefully clients coming from that. Our cultural communities. I mean, I'm Greek and Armenian. My husband's Greek. We're very active in the community. We're both on boards for St. Nicholas, Greek Orthodox Church at Ground Zero. And we do a lot of philanthropy, in the community. So I'm excited about, the confluence of a lot of those things in our lives that are sort of seedlings right now, but I know that they're going to expand, as our life expands and, on a national level as well, at least in our community. Yeah. And then also
Great.
new projects and new clients. Certainly. There's always the new that's,
Right.
keeps going. And I'm sure you can relate to that.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
um, I like to conclude it. This is my favorite part of the podcast. This is if you could give your younger agent self any advice, what would it be?
I am a poorly recovering perfectionist. So I would say to my younger self, who is more married to that idea of like the A plus, like get it done, completionist, I would say loosen those expectations a little bit on yourself, be a little kinder to yourself, younger Elena, appreciate all that you're doing and who you are, and just the internal dialogue to just be less severe, because I think you just push yourself forward in a kinder way. The dialogue within yourself should be just as diplomatic and kind as it is to the person in front of you.
I like that. It reminds me of when I was on site at Superior Inc. With my friend Horatio Ladon, kind of my brother from another mother. He used to always say to me, "Oh, you worry too much. That last 10% is going to kill you." So, I guess maybe you and I share that perfectionistic, if we wouldn't have cared so much about that last 10%.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I mean, as we said, it's just that, being grateful, certainly it was, every day I wake up and I'm grateful for my family, my health, our opportunities. But, we have to let go of some of the small things. Like, don't sweat the small stuff, they used to say.
Right,
That's
right.
really true. It really is. Yeah, I want to conclude with this Agent Brew coffee cup. Thank you.
Wow, I don't know where you would have received that. I
Imagine.
appreciate that. So as we conclude, thank you so much for coming on with us and really sharing your journey. And also personally for your friendship. It has meant a lot over the years. And we always like to leave with a positive quote. And so for this week, it is, "There are no secrets to success. It is the result of preparation, hard work, and learning from failure." And this comes from Colin Powell. I thought you might appreciate that one.
Absolutely. I love it. That's great.
So thank you, Elena Sarkissian of Douglas Elliman here in Manhattan for joining us. We appreciate your story and your journey, and you.
Thank you, Eric. I always appreciate spending time with you, chatting with you, and now your viewers. I think it's terrific what you're doing, and happy to come back on and chat further.
Great. Well, thank you to our audience for joining us today. We look forward to future episodes with you. I'm Eric Zollinger, your host, reminding you it is a great day for real estate. The Agent Brew podcast is brought to you by RealtyCo. RealtyCo is your partner in real estate, bringing you game-changing benefits and services to empower your business. Visit realtyco.com for more information.